Rabbitte.
Thank you, Chair. And I welcome the opportunity to speak on this evening. And may I begin first by extending Deputy McGrath's apologies. He just couldn't be here, but has given me the opportunity to speak on this. And I would believe no different to what Deputy McGuinness and Deputy Wallace has said here. Since I became elected, it has been one of the main issues that has been coming in my front door in my constituency office. It's how people are being treated. But what we experienced this summer and what happened while we were in recess, and I would have agreed with Deputy McGuinness when we said we should have had a recall of the Dáil, when we had the sale off of the PST and Ulster Bank and the sale of their loans, and where we now know, where we have now 10,700 mortgages on to start mortgages also owned by Lone Star, and where Ulster Bank announced that the sale of 5,200 mortgages to Seabros, there were 2,300 family home mortgages and 2,900 rent to buy. I think it's important also to read into the record of what the committee are looking for. What the committee are looking for is the likes of Apollo, Carvel, Seabros Capital, Lone Star Europe, Oak Tree Capital and Starwood Capital to appear before the Joint Committee on Finance, Public Expenditure and Reform and Taoiseach. Why have they recommended it? And it's recommendation number 17. The committee recommends that the government cease engagement with all unregulated loan owners or vulture funds until such time as these entities agree to meet with the Joint Committee on Finance, Public Expenditure, Reform, Taoiseach for the purpose outlined in paragraph 8 of this report. It goes on to say on point number 18, furthermore, the committee recommends that the government introduce legislation to provide for the regulation of entities that are currently unregulated, the loan owners operating in the Irish mortgage market. While I sat down here and I was listening to the various contributions, what sprung to my mind was clichés. We were elected by the people to protect the people. We are the voice of the people. And that's what I see my role as here this evening. Because what I'm experiencing is what this committee are trying to articulate. They want to get transparency and accountability. They want to get reassurance as what is the role of these vulture funds in the Irish market. And how are we going to go on to protect, in essence, the 11,314 principal dwelling homes and the 6,778 buy-to-let. See, we talk about houses, we talk about buy-to-lets, but inside every one of those four walls, there's their families or their single individuals. But that's their home. It's their home we're talking about, where they have built a community, where their children attend school, where they work locally. But now there's uncertainty. And I think Deputy Wallace puts it very well already in relation to the amount of people that are actually facing repossession. Because that's what we are facing down here with those figures that I'm staring at. But that is already what has happened. I think it's disingenuous not to support the motion that has been put forward by the Chair, John McGuinness, and his committee. Very disingenuous. And I would say it is incumbent of the government to actually rethink this one. And I have seen it happen here once before on an evening where we had a second thought and something was withdrawn. I certainly won't be supporting the motion that the government, or the amendment that the government are bringing forward by any manner or means. And I think it's also important to remember what Deputy McGuinness has said. And I'm not one for throwing out confidence and supply. It's the first time I think I've ever used it in the 2.5 years since we engaged in it. But there is a commitment in the confidence and supply arrangement to provide greater protection for mortgage holders, tenants and SMEs whose loans have been transferred to non-regulated entities, vulture funds. Why? Because I am the voice of the people to protect the people of my area, like any others that are here. The large-scale loan sale of of banks to unregulated loans owners, the Finance Committee undertook to invite these investment funds to appear in front of the committee to discuss their approach to mortgage arrears and distressed loans. Now, how simple could that be? The clerk of the committee wrote a letter and invited them in to say, will you come before us and explain exactly what's going on? What's your plan? What's your strategy? What's your motivation? And how are we going to look after all these families? They wrote to them on the 11th of April, is the last document I can see here in front of me. And every one of the 6 that I named out there declined. Not one came forward to give any form of reassurance or transparency. But what beggars belief is that they're able to meet behind closed doors. So what's discussed behind the closed doors that can't be said at committee? Because you know what? We've had everybody in before the committee since I've arrived here. Absolutely everybody. And we've seen heads roll out of committees. So why is there such secrecy in bringing them forward? See, that's where putting the doubt in our head is what we're dealing with. I think Deputy Wallace puts it very eloquently in where he talks about what's there to hide. To me now, there's doubt in my head. It's really copper-fastened, the fact that the amendment went in on this evening. I think we should be ceasing. Fianna Fáil believes that the banks should be working through their loan book on a case-by-case basis instead of outsourcing the dirty work to currently unregulated and unaccountable vulture funds. Fianna Fáil introduced through Deputy McGrath a legislation that will regulate these loan owners, as the Central Bank had originally intended to do. The Government have accepted this legislation and it is working its way through the Dáil, as Minister Darcy said. That being said, the refusal by these funds to appear in front of the Finance Committee is an affront of democratic accountability. It's even more obscene given that these funds have no problem meeting, as I say, with the Department. I think it's unfortunate as well that it's taken on the graveyard shift, this particular motion. Usually, and we've had some great debates on the graveyard shift, but it's just a pity that this one, which is hitting into every county and community in Ireland. See, there was a time when people believed that repossessions happened because people didn't pay their loans. I'll tell you a story of one that I'm working on at the moment. It's a couple, and for the last 5 years, even through all their distress, they negotiated and they reduced it back down to €315 a month. Might sound very small, but it's very large for this family. I met with them when this situation broke in relation to the permanent TSB in Ulster Bank. They got very nervous. So I went out to their house, and in fairness, I got one of the fund managers to come out and meet with me. Their loan had been sold on to Cerebus. They were reassured that paperwork would follow within a week, that they could get their extension for 6 months until we looked at other avenues of rent to buy or whatever. He rang my office last night saying, Anne, the paperwork hasn't come, but I have got the call to say my loan now has gone up to $1,200 a month. He'll miss 3 of those. What does that mean? That means by him missing those 3, he's now reneging on his deal. The black mark is out. They're not regulated. They can go for him. That is the fact of the matter. And that's why I think we should be supporting this motion, that until such time as these come before the committee, all engagement should cease. Thank you, Chair.